February 1955, the Far East Land Forces Training Centre, Singapore. A group of visiting British officers stood in an open clearing, 50 yards from a concealed firing position. 5 shots were fired. Not one officer realised a weapon had been discharged. The loudest sound was the mechanical click of a bolt cycling. The weapon responsible weighed 3.4 kilograms, looked like a plumber's pipe welded to a rifle stock, and had been written off as obsolete after World War II ended. That weapon was the Lisle Carbine, an integrally suppressed 45 ACP bolt action. Designed by William Godfray de Lisle, it was about to become one of the most effective sentry elimination tools in the Malayan jungle. The problem facing British forces in Malaya was precise. Communist terrorist guerrillas operated from jungle camps defended by sentry networks, pre-planned escape routes, and Aboriginal early warning systems. A patrol approaching a camp faced a tactical nightmare. Fire a single shot to eliminate a sentry, and the entire camp would vanish into pre-cut jungle trails before the assault could begin. The Malayan jungle absorbed many sounds, but a rifle report at 155 decibels carried for kilometres through vegetation corridors. British patrols needed to kill without being heard. No weapon in standard issue could do this. The Lisle Carbine could. The technical achievement behind this silence was British engineering at its finest. William Godfray de Lisle, an engineer who worked with the Ministry of Aircraft Production, designed the weapon in 1943 for combined operations. According to his 1981 interview with historian Ian Skennerton, he built his first suppressed weapon, a .22 caliber prototype, at his home in Beckenham, Kent. The larger 45 ACP version was tested by firing at a chimney near the Wilkes gun shop in Piccadilly. Some accounts claim testing occurred on a rooftop overlooking the Thames, though Skennerton's interview records the Piccadilly location. Sources disagree on this detail. The carbine attacked all 3 sources of firearms noise simultaneously. A shortened 7-inch Thompson submachine gun barrel was drilled with ports that bled high-pressure propellant gases into a rear expansion chamber before the bullet exited. These gases then passed through 13 spiraled metal disc baffles arranged in an offset pattern, forcing them through a tortuous deceleration path. The 45 ACP cartridge was inherently subsonic at approximately 850 feet per second, eliminating the supersonic crack that makes rifle suppression so difficult. The bolt action meant no automatic cycling noise. Sterling's production models added a rubber dampening pad on the bolt handle that silenced even the metallic clack of the Lee-Enfield action. The weapon's construction was a masterclass in adapting existing components for an entirely new purpose. The receiver came from the short-magazine Lee-Enfield Mark III Star, the standard British infantry rifle. The barrel came from the Thompson submachine gun, shortened and ported. The magazine was a modified M1911 pistol magazine holding 7 rounds. The suppressor housing was constructed from duralumin, an aluminium alloy that kept weight manageable, despite the suppressor comprising roughly half the weapon's 905mm overall length. The sights were graduated from 50 to 200 yards, reflecting realistic combat engagement distances for a subsonic pistol-caliber cartridge. Major Sir Malcolm Campbell, the famous land speed record holder, who was then working at Combined Operations Headquarters, arranged the first official demonstration after seeing de Lisle's prototype. The War Office was initially skeptical. A rifle chambered in pistol ammunition seemed backwards, but field testing changed minds rapidly. The weapon could place aimed shots accurately at distances where the well rod was useless, and it could do so without alerting anyone beyond the immediate target area. Combined Operations ordered 17 prototypes built at Ford's Dagenham factory, where de Lisle personally supervised production in the manager's ARP dugout. These steel-bodied prototypes went straight into combat with British commandos in Normandy and the Far East. Period testing by the Armament Research Department recorded the de Lisle at approximately 85.5 decibels. That is roughly the volume of a food blender. A standard rifle fires at 155 decibels or higher. The Silent Sten Mark IIS registered 89.5 decibels on the same equipment. The Wellrod pistol measured 73 decibels. Modern reproduction testing using military standard procedures shows higher figures, but different measurement methods and equipment complicate direct comparisons between period and modern results. The meaningful comparison is relative. On identical period test equipment, the de Lisle was quieter than every shoulder-fired suppressed weapon in the British inventory, except the single-shot Wellrod pistol. Only approximately 147 de Lisle carbines were ever manufactured. Ford's Dagenham factory built 17 hand-built prototypes under de Lisle's personal supervision. Sterling Armaments Company then received an order for 500 production models, 450 with fixed stocks, and 50 folding stock airborne variants. The order was cancelled in late 1944 after only approximately 130 units were completed. According to Armament Research Services analysis, Only 1 or 2 folding stock prototypes were ever built. The sole survivor sits in the Small Arms School Corps collection at Warminster. If you are enjoying this, hit subscribe. Now let's get into the combat record. The Malayan emergency began in June 1948, when the Malayan Communist Party launched an armed insurgency against British colonial rule. The enemy was the Malayan Races Liberation Army, later renamed the Malayan National Liberation Army. These guerrillas numbered around 8,000 at peak strength. They operated from deep jungle camps hidden under triple canopy forest, supplied by a network of Minuan supporters in villages and rubber plantations. Locating these camps was difficult. Assaulting them successfully was nearly impossible if the first shot alerted the defenders. SAS patrols learned this lesson through bitter experience. A 4-man patrol might spend 500 hours in the jungle to achieve a single contact. When that contact finally came, often at dawn when sentries were most vulnerable, everything depended on the first seconds. A camp with alert defenders would scatter through pre-cut escape routes. A camp with a dead sentry and sleeping occupants could be overwhelmed. The de Lisle was designed precisely for that first, silent kill. By 1950, surviving Lisle Carbines had been reconditioned at the Royal Small Arms Factory, Enfield, and shipped to the Far East Land Forces Theatre. A December 1950 memo held at the UK National Archives file, WO 291/1651 recorded observations on the de Lisle Carbine and its probable use in Malaya. The weapon was formally assessed as an ideal tool for silently dealing with sentries discovered during jungle patrol operations. The most detailed first-hand account comes from Lieutenant D.I.A., Mac of the 1st Battalion Royal Scots Fusiliers. His diary entry from the 13th of February 1955 at Crow describes his first encounter with the weapon. He wrote that it was meant for the silent knocking of bandit sentries, or for any other occasion when one wants to run out a chap without warning his muckers of the wrath to come. He described firing it as rather uncanny, noting there was no bang whatsoever, just the click of the released firing pin, the whiz of the bullet not heard normally, and the thump as the bullet hits the stop bank or body. In the jungle, he observed, most of the noises would be smothered and would pass unnoticed if not unheard. This diary entry, published in the Journal of the Royal Highland Fusiliers in 2006, confirms the weapon was issued beyond SAS units to regular infantry conducting jungle patrols. What makes Mac's account significant is its clinical precision. He identified exactly 3 audible components: the firing pin click, the bullet in flight, the terminal impact. In laboratory conditions, these observations match precisely what Armament Research Department testers documented. The firing pin and bolt action produced more noise than the actual discharge of the cartridge. A shooter could choose not to cycle the bolt after firing, maintaining total silence until he needed to reload. This gave patrol leaders extraordinary tactical flexibility. General Sir Gerald Templar, the High Commissioner who orchestrated Malaya's successful counterinsurgency campaign, was photographed test-firing a de Lisle in Perak in 1952. The image is held by the National Army Museum under reference NAM 1981-04-77-1. His personal interest signals that the weapon was being evaluated at the highest command levels. A 1957 military reappraisal, 7 years into the emergency, formally declared the de Lisle an ideal weapon for silently dealing with any sentries discovered during jungle patrolling operations. The assessment emphasized that the weapon was designed fundamentally as a silent carbine, and was not simply a carbine fitted with a silencer. The Malayan jungle created acoustic conditions that amplified the de Lisle's advantages beyond specifications alone. Dense triple canopy tropical forest attenuates medium and high-frequency sounds, significantly beyond 40 meters. Soft forest floor, leaf litter, and dense vegetation scatter and absorb sound waves. A conventional rifle report could carry for kilometers through jungle corridors in favorable conditions. The de Lisle's 85.5 decibel report, comparable to normal conversation, would be absorbed within tens of meters by the same vegetation. Engagement distances in Malayan jungle contacts rarely exceeded 50 meters, placing every encounter well within the weapon's effective range of 200 yards. The comparative picture against other British suppressed weapons crystallizes around trade-offs. The Welrod pistol was quieter at 73 decibels, but effective only at 7 to 25 yards. According to technical documentation, its rubber-white baffles degraded after just 10 to 15 rounds, making it an assassination tool rather than a patrol weapon. The silenced Sten Mark 2S was louder at 89.5 decibels, less accurate, and its wire mesh baffles degraded rapidly under automatic fire. The de Lisle occupied a unique middle ground, quieter than the Sten, far more capable than the Welrod, with metal baffles lasting hundreds of rounds without degradation. Period trials recorded best groups of 1 3/4 inches by 1 inch at 20 yards, compared to 4 by 2.5 inches for the suppressed Sten. For sustained jungle patrolling where a single weapon might need to perform across multiple contacts over weeks, the de Lisle was unmatched. The Americans had nothing comparable. The US Office of Strategic Services used the British Welrod and requested Lisle carbines, but American suppressor technology lagged behind British development throughout the war. The OSS high-standard HDMS pistol, their primary suppressed weapon, used a conventional add-on suppressor that degraded rapidly and never achieved true silence. Mitchell Werbel III, the OSS operative who used de Lisles against Japanese sentries in Burma, went on to become one of America's most important suppressor designers, creating the SIO-NICS suppressors and the Vietnam-era destroyer carbine. His post-war work was directly influenced by his experience with British designs. The Germans produced suppressed weapons, including the MP40 with Schalldämpfer attachment, but these were primarily intended for concealment of muzzle flash rather than true sound suppression. German suppressor design focused on reducing the visible signature of weapons fire for night operations, not on achieving the total acoustic signature reduction that British designers pursued. German snipers used the Karabiner 98K with conventional add-on suppressors, but tests showed these reduced sound by only 10 to 15 decibels. No Axis power fielded anything matching the de Lisle's combination of silence, accuracy, and reliability. The British approach of designing the weapon around the suppressor, rather than adding a suppressor to an existing weapon, was unique. Journalist Jeff Heath, quoted in Robert Rome's 1984 article, described seeing de Lisles carried openly alongside silenced Stens in Kuala Lumpur clubs. He reported that former SOE operatives serving in Malaya had used the de Lisle before, suggesting institutional knowledge transferred from wartime clandestine operations directly into post-war counterinsurgency. Heath noted that their chaps used to stake out in those areas, like their old special mission days in the last war, and try to kill the terrorists with the silenced weapons, beat them at their own game of terror. Despite confirmed Malayan service, no documented evidence places the de Lisle in the Borneo confrontation from 1962 to 1966. The Armament Research Service's analysis states explicitly that unlike the longer-lived Welrod, there are no other documented post-war uses of the type. By the time Operation Claret cross-border operations began in 1964, several factors had rendered the de Lisle operationally marginal. SAS four-man patrols penetrating into Indonesian Kalimantan carried L1A1, self-loading rifles, and increasingly Colt Armalite AR-15 rifles. The 45 ACP cartridge was no longer standard British ammunition, creating logistics complications. With fewer than 130 production examples ever made, many already worn or scrapped, finding serviceable de Lisles would have been difficult. Legend has it that surviving examples continued in Special Forces service. Multiple sources claim SAS employment during the Northern Ireland Troubles in the 1970s. One source suggests a de Lisle accompanied the task force to the Falklands in 1982. The Sofret military blog speculates that a couple continued to be held in regimental stores just in case. These claims remain firmly unverified, but the persistence of such stories speaks to the weapon's mystique among operators who value silence above all else. The de Lisle was never formally retired through a published date or directive. It simply faded from operational availability as serviceable examples dwindled and technology advanced. The best evidence suggests effective retirement in the late 1950s to early 1960s. The L34A1 suppressed Sterling, adopted in 1967 and produced by the same Sterling Armaments Company that manufactured the de Lisle, served as the functional replacement. It used a similar ported barrel integral suppressor concept, a direct conceptual descendant. The L34A1 was eventually replaced by the Heckler & Koch MP5SD, which became the standard British Special Forces suppressed weapon. Confirmed surviving original de Lisle carbines exist at 5 locations: the Imperial War Museum in London, the Royal Armoury's National Firearms Centre in Leeds, holding multiple examples including serial number 129, the Small Arms School Corps collection at Warminster, holding the sole folding stock prototype, the Defence Academy at Shrivenham, serial number 209, and the War Heritage Institute in Brussels, 1 Ford Dagenham prototype. Total surviving originals worldwide likely number a dozen or fewer. De Lisle's own .22 caliber prototype, given to the National Army Museum, was lost around 2000, a significant gap in the historical record. Modern reproductions prove the design's enduring appeal. US armament manufacturing began producing faithful reproductions in 2025 at $5,999 to $6,500. Earlier Valkyrie Arms reproductions have fetched over $8,000 at auction. The Curtiss Tactical CT-700P, a Remington 700 action integrally suppressed in 45 ACP, is explicitly marketed as a modern-day Lisle Carbine. These designs validate what British engineers understood 80 years ago. A large-volume integral suppressor combined with a ported barrel and inherently subsonic ammunition produces extraordinary quietness without sacrificing lethality. The principle established by the de Lisle that true suppression requires designing the entire weapon system around acoustic management lives on in every modern integrally suppressed firearm. The Heckler & Koch MP5SD uses a ported barrel bleeding gases into expansion chambers. The Russian AS Val assault rifle employs the same fundamental architecture. Even modern bolt-action precision rifles intended for covert operations follow the de Lisle's template. British engineers in 1943 solved a problem that firearms designers worldwide still reference today. The de Lisle carbine's post-war story is one of a niche weapon finding its perfect operational environment. Designed for commando raids in occupied Europe, it discovered its true purpose in Malayan jungles, where the difference between a hard and unheard shot meant the difference between a successful camp assault and an empty clearing. British patrols needed to kill sentries without alerting the camp. The Americans had no weapon that could do this. The Germans had no weapon that could do this. Only British engineers working with a modified Lee Enfield action, a Thompson barrel, and 13 carefully designed baffles solved the problem. A gunshot that sounds like a closing door, a sentry who drops without his comrades knowing why, a camp that remains in place, unaware, until the assault force is already inside the perimeter. That was what British engineering delivered in Malaya. 147 weapons built, 5 confirmed museum survivors, fewer than a dozen originals remaining worldwide, and a legacy that lives on in every integrally suppressed firearm produced since. The de Lisle carbine looked like a plumber's mistake. It performed like nothing else in the world. British engineering produced a highly specialised tool that, in the right hands and the right environment, changed how small unit stealth operations were fought.